Welcome to Younger and Older. This is Jason and Dave hanging out at the studios at Birch Ranch in the North Woods of Wisconsin. And I'm getting excited, Dave, because right around the corner is summer. I know we're not quite there yet, but that's our busy season.
How many people come here in the summer?
In the summer, I'd say
Campers.
Camper-wise, we have, I would probably say, between 2,800 and 3,000 students that come through our doors.
Okay.
And then we have 3 family camps on top of that. So we have
So you might have 4,000 people.
4,000 people come through in a 10-week time span.
Right.
So, and I'm excited because it's rare that we get a spring in the North Woods of Wisconsin. You know, last few years, I think it landed on a Friday or Saturday.
Yeah.
But this year it
might have been a Saturday.
It might have been a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
But actually it might be extended this time.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to somebody, and we do a theme every year. And to bring the theme to life, we build a set in the field, and we do a thing called Theme Night where we kind of bring it to life. We get in costume and design a fun, kind of all-immersive game experience for them. And so we usually build the set as soon as we can once the ground thaws and all that. And I was talking to somebody the other day. I'm like, man, I think the earliest I've ever started building was maybe the 27th of April. You know, just because in the North Woods, like, you just have to wait for the frost to get out. But looking at this year, it's like, man, I might get like a 3-4 week jump start on that, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
That should be good.
Maybe
there would be no last-minute pressure.
That's right. The theme this summer is called The Hidden Realm, and it's our kind of medieval.
So you're going to have a hidden obstacle out there that nobody can see.
Maybe.
Then it's done.
It's done.
It's done now.
It's hidden.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if you've never been here during the summertime, we'd love to have you. You know, whether you want to camp, family camp, youth camp. Some of our youth camps are full, but we do have space in a few of them. Feel free to head over to silverbirchranch.org/summer. Otherwise, if you are a high school student or a parent of a high school student, we're always looking for volunteers.
Yes.
You know, if you want to do something a week at a time. Now, when I say a week, our youth camps aren't necessarily a week long. They're about 5 days long. And so if you wanted to come and volunteer for 5 days throughout the summer and any of the various, you know, areas of camp, we are always looking for volunteers to help make it happen. It takes an army, essentially, to help make camp happen. And so if that's something that interests you, or if you want to do it as a family, I encourage you to reach out to us. Either check out our website or feel free to even email me, and you can do that.
One of the fun things people can do is come up with a youth group and do our dish crew.
Right. And absolutely. Whether it's youth groups or even we've had life groups, you know, so if you are in a church, part of a life group, and you're on kind of break for the summer, because I think those take a break, it's like, man, you can do that as a connecting point. Come, we'll house you, feed you, and then you just help us work together by serving and doing the dishes.
And you get to do some of the fun activities around that and meet in the evenings with your group. It could be a very positive thing.
Yeah, and so we're looking for those, actually. You know, we have 11 youth camps, and we're looking to try to fill each of those youth camps with dish crews. That way there's not as much demand on our volunteers for that. And so I think we have 2 of the 11 slots filled. And if you are looking to do something fun and different for the summer, reach out to us. Out to us.
I would invite 2 people to pray for very specific things for us for the summer. I would love them to pray that we remain effective at our mission.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know, the world is in such a mess that places like Silver Birch Ranch that are really dedicated to knowing Christ and making him known, to the truth, we don't want to fade from that at all. We want to be able to speak the truth in love. We want to be able to talk to people about how special God is to them. We really want them to be responding to the King. Yeah. And so if you'd pray that we stay effective, that'd be wonderful. We also want to be a safe place. The world in which we live is crazy again in making things not safe, whether it be war or whether it just be pornography or whether it be something else that's going on in the world that's so accessible and so crazy.
Yeah.
Pray that somehow these grounds are protected and everyone who comes on these grounds is safe. Mm-hmm. And of course we mean the physical safety too, whether it be swimming. We want to make sure that we take care of the people while they're swimming or they're going on horses. We obviously don't want someone to fall off and get hurt or the zip line and that kind of thing. We do some things that have a little bit of danger to them, but that's really part of the fun.
Yeah.
And try and do it to where it's always safe. So pray for safety throughout the summer months. Pray that we remain a fun place, and that's what Jason is in charge of. That we basically are somewhere where people can come, hear a lot of laughter, be together, have it clean, have it fun, wholesome. Everything that is right about relationships and activities help us get there.
Yeah.
So pray that we're a fun place. And the last thing is pray that we always stay affordable for people. We never want to turn someone away because they can't afford to come.
Absolutely.
Because ministry and what we do is not just for kids who have resources, it's for everybody.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the unique reasons, and some people don't know that, but one of the unique reasons why we don't charge extra when kids come to camp for horseback riding and for water skiing and for zip line and for all that stuff. Even though it costs us extra to get it done, what we do is we cannot have those who come here with money experience those things, and those who come here without money watch those others experience them.
Right.
That wouldn't be right.
Correct.
So we just offer it to everybody. It's all free once they come here. And so we ask that you pray for those 4 things, that we remain effective, safe, fun, and affordable. If you do that, we certainly would appreciate it. And if you can come up and participate with us, even better.
Yeah.
Youth workers can come up with their campers even, or they can come up. If you're somebody who could counsel young people, I tell you, a week here at camp is absolutely golden.
Yeah, and if you're looking for an experience for young people, we're kind of full at main camp, but we also have the Northwoods Retreat, which during the summertime, we actually gear towards specific youth groups. And so we take the camp experience that we do at Silver Ridge Ranch and hone in. That way a youth group can come by themselves, and we kind of focus more on the discipleship aspect. So we still have all the fun and stuff, but imagine just doing the summer camp experience, but it's just you guys, and it creates this intimacy and this opportunity to really invest in your students. And so if you're a youth pastor or if you're a youth leader listening, I'd encourage you, if you want to plan something that would be really effective with your young people, check out the northwoodsretreat.org, and we'd love to have you. I think it's really important to we've talked about this on previous shows, but just to provide a space for young people to be young people again.
Right.
And that's why even this summer, one of the things I'm going to add on to what you said about praying for is we actually are taking a step this summer, asking students to leave their phones at home. Which for some it's like, oh, that's great, but for some that's probably a big deal.
Yeah.
And the reason we're doing that is, as many of you know, we're just a distracted culture. And almost an addicted culture to technology. And I think it's one step that we're taking to provide the opportunity for people to unplug, to get away, because that's what they need.
Yep.
A change of place and a change of pace challenges your perspective.
Yep.
And in this case, we need to change, even what's in their hands all the time.
Yeah.
That way they can unplug and realize, man, I can actually get to know the God that I say is distant.
Yeah.
Because I think oftentimes as a generation or even as a culture, we're like, man, I don't feel God, I don't see God. And I think oftentimes it's because we're not giving him the space
Right.
To reach out to us, and we're not stopping to listen.
Right.
And so
I think people ought to have in their daily, their regular schedule, maybe not daily, a time where they just get apart, do something different, get quiet, meditate, because Satan tries to take that away from us in a very busy culture where there's always distraction available. Mm-hmm. It's really fun to see kids just stop and sit around a campfire and throw stuff into the campfire. You know what I mean? 8-year-old kids throwing stuff in a campfire. It's like, oh, cool, look at that burns.
Absolutely.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
The fun part of camping is always that it does get us out of our normal routine. In some respects, a child who has always got mom making decisions for them, always doing the same thing, all of a sudden they're at camp and they got to decide what shirt they're going to wear. Okay, well, some of them wear the same one.
It's true.
They take after me because I would wear the same clothes every day as well. But the bottom line really is camp does things to get people out of their comfort zone. And kids, it's okay for them to feel, oh, no, I'm in the woods. I don't know what's out here. It's dangerous. We wouldn't have a dangerous place just between me and you.
Right.
However.
Yeah.
There are animals. There are all kinds of birds. There are eagles flying all over the place. There's a lake. Boy, you're not used to that. All of a sudden, all these unknown factors come into play. Mm-hmm. And that's good for a young person to go through. That's the kind of stress that's healthy. They go through that with other people, and it's good for their minds. It's good for their spiritual lives. So, we encourage, get away from the norm at least a few times a year.
Absolutely.
And get yourself back connected.
Yeah.
And some people say, I do that on vacation. Vacation's usually a little different. Sometimes you come back from vacation more tired than you went out.
That's right. You almost need a vacation from your vacation sometimes, unfortunately.
Hopefully, when people come here, they can unwind while they're here.
Yep.
And really sit and have nothing on their mind and that kind of thing. Sometimes when I do that, I measure my deep sleep, which I don't know if it's accurate or not. My watch will tell me, what I do. And sometimes if I'm out somewhere and I am not in my norm, I'll double the deep sleep.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, if I'm in my norm, I go about half. So I don't know what the body does in that case, but it's like, well, you're out, you're unplugged, double the deep sleep. And maybe it's because I was sick or something too. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Because I haven't checked it every time, and I don't do that too much. But
you're right.
That's the fun thing. I want to talk about responsibility today, though, because I think people need to understand that we are people who have responsibilities to God and to each other. I remember when I was younger, my dad instilled in me somehow that whenever you learn something, you have a responsibility to teach something.
Okay.
So if you learn it, you teach it.
Yeah.
And you had to look for somebody to teach. I mean, it's like, well, I learned something, I have to teach it.
Yeah.
Now, you look at my life today, I'm still doing that. I do 4 different podcasts. We do some of it's on the radio. I speak, I teach MBI. It's like every time I learn something, I'm putting it in a file to do something with it because I feel responsible to do that.
Yeah.
And as I looked at that, I thought, is that an obsessive something or is that just responsibility? Well, if you learn something and it's really good for you, shouldn't you share that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, not if you're trying to convince somebody because of your own bias or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So you might say, well, I need to have 5 people think like me so I feel good about me. That's not what we're talking about.
Right.
But learning something in God's Word, learning something about life, learning something about anything.
Yeah.
You and I, we've shared information. I mean, you needed trees this year to tap for maple syrup, so you came over and we looked at them because sometimes in the winter it's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell what tree is what tree.
What trees are what.
That's right.
And I happen to know on my property what trees are what, so
yeah.
Shows you and you tapped them and you made some syrup out of it. The fun part for me was being able to share the information.
Yeah.
And now you shared it with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And the process of making maple syrup, somebody shared that with you.
Mm-hmm. Whether
it be YouTube, but somebody shared it.
Yeah.
And that could be the fascination on YouTube with all the sharing that goes on there. I think God made us to be, I learned something, I got to show somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the healthy thing. The unhealthy thing is to take something in and not do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's use food as an analogy. You take food in and you don't do anything with the calories, you don't do anything with the energy. What happens to you?
You just be.
Yeah, you become obese. You just sit there. You don't feel good. You don't look good. You don't. Why? Because you were taking in things that were meant to be used
and do something with.
And you didn't do anything with them.
Yeah.
So I wonder how many times we get in the habit of taking things in and we don't do anything with them.
Right.
Now, I might have been obsessed with this all my life because when I was a kid in school and the teacher would give us an assignment, I would always be saying, why do I need to know this? Why? Because if you teach this to me, I need to go do something with it. I can't just take this and go, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, the teacher didn't always have an answer for me, so sometimes they said, that's just how you learn.
Yeah.
I understand that. I'm a teacher too, and I taught 5th grade, so I understand there's some times where you say, just learn. Just you're going to need this for down the road.
Yeah.
And this builds on that. But the bottom line really is, I keep thinking how many times we hear something, we take it in, we say it's important, but we do nothing with it.
Right. And
sometimes it's because we're looking at what other people do. We're gauging our responsibility according to what they do. It's really about what I learn. For example, the Bible tells me if I seek God, what'll happen?
He'll draw near to you.
Yeah. Not only will we draw near to him, I'll find him.
Yeah, you'll find him, yeah.
So God doesn't play hide and seek real well. So
right.
It's like, if you're looking for me, the promise throughout the Bible is, you'll find me.
Yeah.
In the Bible, too, we're told, if you draw near to God, he'll draw near to you.
Right. Sorry,
Okay.
I jumped ahead on your notes.
That's all right. But it's both.
Right.
So the responsibility is what? My responsibility is to seek God. So if I'm coming to you or you're coming to me and you're saying, all right, Dave, I just don't feel God close to me. My first response is, well, then you're not seeking him.
Yeah. What are you doing to seek him?
Yeah.
You know?
And you might go, oh, come on. No, I mean it.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because there's a promise in the Bible that if you seek God, you'll find him.
Yep.
So if you can't find him, you're not looking for him.
Absolutely.
So I'd ask you, Jason, how do you find them? I mean, how do someone's sitting out there going, okay, fine, how do I seek them? How do I find them?
I think there's a variety of ways. I mean, the main thing is Scripture.
Right.
You know, it's like you could spend some time, open up the Word, and learn about God.
Right.
And if you learn about God, you get to know who God is.
Right.
You know, and then spend some time talking to God, you know, and praying and then give him the space to just be, you know, and I think that's those three things is what we're missing.
Yeah.
Because we expect like an on-demand thing. It's like, well, I go to church, I listen to a sermon, you know, I'm listening to music.
But what do you do with the sermon? That stuff goes in and
Right,
just
it goes
makes
in
you
and it goes out.
spiritually obese.
If we're even listening.
Right.
I mean, that's assuming that we're not thinking about what we're doing after the service, where we're going for the football game that day, what groceries we need to get, you know, what homework assignment we need to finish, you know. That's if we're actually paying attention to the sermon.
All right, confession time. Have you ever had your wife speak to you but you didn't hear her?
Yes.
Uh-huh. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Now, she's speaking. There are words flying at you. You they're going into your ears.
Yep.
You might even be nodding.
Oh yeah. And then and then you see that she's waiting for an answer and you're like,
What answer do you want me to give you?
what's the right thing for me to say right now?
Right. Right.
You know.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Your response, if she's talking, and she's talking to you, what responsibility do you have?
To listen.
So if you don't listen, whose problem is that?
Mine. 100%.
So we know that God is speaking.
Yeah.
We know he speaks through his word. We know he speaks through creation.
Right.
I mean, I have a picture of a sunrise on my iPad now that is in the background because I was so amazed by a sunrise about a week ago or whenever that was. And I took a picture of it, and still when I turn my iPad on now, when I look at it, it's like, oh, that is so cool.
Yeah.
See, God speaks through his creation. He speaks through his word. Now, if you really wanted to listen to your wife speak at that moment, you could have.
Yes.
So the problem really is yours.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why weren't you listening to her?
I was distracted.
Okay, now we're not talking about a specific time. So in general, what are you distracted by? She's talking
something else that I think is more, you know, I'm not focusing. I'm not taking the time to be responsible and listen.
So if we apply that to God,
right,
you need to have time where you say, I am going to focus and I'm going to get rid of the other distractions. I mean, and the distractions can be strange. They could be so little.
Right.
You know, Linda, my wife, she could have put the mail on the counter.
Yeah.
And she's talking, I'm looking at the mail. Mm-hmm. Just from the distance. I'm trying to see what's there.
Right. Yep.
And she's talking, and I hear the Charlie Brown thing, wah, 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 and, and yet, then she goes, what do you think? It's like,
well, I was looking through the mail.
I agree.
I agree. That's right.
And later, you know, something comes up, and so you agreed to that. It's like, did you say that? You know.
Right.
Now, it's totally my fault. What I didn't realize is that I was totally distracted by mail.
Yeah.
This wasn't an evil moment in life. This wasn't. However, if I want to listen to somebody, I need to actually listen to them.
Right. And give them the time.
Okay. So that's the responsibility.
Yeah.
Here's what I encourage people to do. If you want to have a healthy relationship with other people, number one, when you talk to them, look them in the eye. Look them right in the eye. The eyes communicate for the rest of the body. Mm-hmm. If you haven't noticed that yet, you haven't. If somebody keeps looking down, they keep. Now, some people have habits. When I'm thinking, I tend to look up at the ceiling. So my eyes will tend to go somewhere like that when I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But then you know I'm thinking.
Sure.
That's all.
But then after you thought, you re-engage.
Yeah, then I re-engage and I come back. You know, it is so important to be able to look at the body of another person while they're talking. Mm-hmm. Because even while I'm talking here, my hands are moving, your head is nodding. These are all part of communication tools.
Right.
So if you're looking at your phone, you're looking at electronics, you're looking at the mail, you're distracted. Now, you're not good to communicate with.
Yeah.
So you're not good in this communication thing. The same thing happens with God.
Absolutely.
If you're going to be having all these distractions in life and you say, well, man, I got to get in the Word because I'm a Christian. I got this devotional thing I got to do.
Yeah.
And I do a 5-minute devotional thing. Okay, I got that done. Most likely that goes nowhere.
Right, especially if you have your phone next to you, you got the music on, you got something going on in the background. I mean, how many times, and I've had this happen, where you read a page of Scripture or a page of your devotional, you flip the page, and you're like, wait a second, what did I just read?
Yeah.
You know, like, and that's the thing, like, are you just going through the motions, or are you actually giving the space? You know, because like I said, just like when we're listening to somebody else,
Right.
you have a choice. You could focus on the mail on the table, or you could focus on who's talking.
Yep.
The same thing goes with our relationship with God is it's not just going to magically happen. And I think, unfortunately, as a culture, as a Christian culture, I think we just think magically we grow closer to God by doing nothing.
Right. And you don't.
And you don't. You know, there's an effort there. You know, I'm not saying that you know, I'm not adding on to salvation. You know, Jesus has paid it all. And if you put your trust and faith in what he did on the cross, like, that's what salvation is. But we have a responsibility in the fact of getting to know God. You know, we have to make time in the day to be able to listen. If we don't make time, it's just like talking to somebody else that we're not paying attention to.
Yeah.
It's just Charlie Brown in the background, the wah, 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 wah.
Yeah.
And that's why often we feel distant from God and we don't hear God, is because we're not taking the responsibility to give him the space to teach us and to learn. And not only that, Dave, like you said, I think it's so important that even when we do our devotionals, whether it's through a 5-minute devotional book or reading there's no perfect length of time. As long as you're getting into the Word, it's better than not getting in the Word. But then do something with it.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I try to teach young people. Like, if you read a page of the Bible, you know, when you finish, before you go on, before you say I'm done, it's like, all right, God, what is one thing that I could take away from that?
Right.
You know, so if you just read through the book of Numbers for some reason,
Right.
maybe that's in your Bible reading plan. It's
Right.
all right, God, I know this was a bunch of numbers, but what's something that I can take away from this?
Right.
Because then it helps you convert just a bunch of words into something that's applicable. And if you make it applicable for yourself, all of a sudden, you're making the connection, and you can then teach somebody else that.
That's right.
And that's why it's so important to be able to take what you learn and be able to teach it. And it's not like it has to be, you know, I mean, I'm sure people listening are like, well, Dave, you're Dave. You know, but that's not an excuse.
No.
I mean, sure, Dave and puts it in programs. We all have our own methods. And I'd say choose whatever the simplest thing is to help you take what you're learning about God and put it into words. Because that's then in your brain giving God the opportunity to teach you, as opposed to just going through the motions. You know, you got to take that step. Yes, it takes more effort. It takes more time. But that's what it's all about. That's the personal responsibility that we're talking about.
Yeah. You know, here's an easy way to start.
Yeah.
See this I have right next to me?
He's got a journal. He's holding up a journal.
Yeah, a journal.
Yeah.
A Silver Birch Ranch journal, by the way.
Yeah.
But I am holding one up. Now, I use this to jot down thoughts and things that I need to do and journal and that kind of thing. Some of the young men that I'm mentoring, when they start journaling, they tell me that's one of the most important things they've learned. So if you're going to, whether it be digital, I tried digital. What I use digital for is teaching.
Yeah.
What I use this for is just my personal thoughts or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And mostly this becomes more my, I need to meet with Jason. I'll put it down here. I want to make sure I do that. I want to make sure this happens and this happens. In other words, I'm journaling my life. Then you can go back through here and you could say, what did I do last Tuesday?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember that. So sometimes it's a to-do list. Sometimes it's a journal. But if you really have not used God's word well in your life and you haven't been in the habit, pick up a journal, some kind of little notebook, and do what Jason talked about. Come up with, a point, write it down, and then you can actually share that with somebody what you wrote down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now all of a sudden you're being responsible with the information that you've gotten. Because one of the most irresponsible things anybody can do is learn something and keep it to themselves.
Right.
Because it doesn't do anybody any good that way except for you. And you're pretty much saying, well, this world and everything is all about me. Well, it's not. And the things that we have, whether it be resources, I've thought about this a lot. Any resources God gives us, or me, and any time that he gives me, any information he gives me, those are not given for myself. Those are not given so I could be self-centered.
Right.
So the responsible part of me comes out and says, okay, then my resources are given to me to be used for something.
Yes.
For what? Well, the Bible tells me if I don't take care of my own family, I'm irresponsible. So it's going to, some of them are going to go there. Some of them are going to go wherever God puts on my heart. Places like camp or missions or whatever else it might be. My time, I think one day everybody, all of a sudden, your time is over. You don't have any more, and you'll give an account for your life. Well, the time that I have is not just for me. The resources are not just for me. The talents are not just for me. So being responsible with what God's given me, since he gave me all that, I'm only responsible when I use those things for the kingdom.
Yeah.
And that's what I'd love our young listeners to wrestle with now when they're younger.
Right.
Is to say, okay, God, all the resources, all the time, all the talent, all the stuff that you've entrusted me with, and I use the word entrusted on purpose, how can I be responsible with it so that one day when I stand before you, I'm not hearing you say, you were a self-centered individual and took everything I gave you and kept it for yourself.
Yeah.
You were spiritually obese. You couldn't even get off the spiritual couch because I fed you, but you didn't do anything with it.
Right.
I want our listeners to be responsible with the information, with their skills, their talents, their connections, to be responsible so that they stand before God one day and they're able to say, yes, God, I did exactly what you wanted me to do.
Right. Right. And I think it's so important. I think we've applied this whole consumerness because we see it so much in our culture, and we've applied that to even our own walk with God.
Absolutely.
Where it's just like, well, it'll just be given to me, and we never do anything with it. And so if there's one thing that you take away from today's program, I just want to challenge you, first of all, are you giving God the time? Are you just allowing God to be the Charlie Brown, the wah 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 in the background? But maybe this week you could focus on one day at a time, focusing on him, and then as you listen, take one thing away and try to put that into words that you could share that with somebody else.
I want to read. We're talking about responsibility. If you haven't been following, young or older, last program we did, we were talking about responsibility. We have responsibility, and I'm afraid that in our culture today, people are running away from their responsibility. For example, if Jason and I were younger and we were in high school together.
I am young, Dave.
I know you are. But let's say we were in high school together.
Okay.
And I see that you're doing things that are harmful to you. Like
Yeah.
I might see you're messing with illegal drugs. You're doing something that's really bad. And because I'm your friend, I don't know what my responsibility is. Well, I would say my responsibility, if I want to use that word, is to go after you.
Yes.
With everything I've got.
Yeah.
Now, that could mean that I go talk to your parents. It could mean that if you're doing something illegal, I go talk to the police. I want you to stop.
Yeah.
Now, it could, first and foremost, I'll go talk to you and say, you got to stop this. Why? Because you're a friend. See, I'm taking the personal responsibility to say, I am going to do what I can to help you stop this.
Yes.
And I think that there's so many today that are watching people destroy themselves, and they're not doing anything about it. They lack the personal responsibility we're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't think if you can watch your friend destroy themselves and you see it day in, day out, you're not a good friend by watching them and allowing them to do that. And so I think you need to step it up and begin. Talk to your pastor. If you know something's going on and someone's saying, I don't want anyone else to know, maybe somebody else needs to know.
Yeah.
Have you ever had somebody come to you and say, I'm going to tell you something, but I don't want you to tell anyone?
Yeah.
Whenever someone comes and tells me that, I don't make that promise.
Right.
Because I think being responsible, if you're going to tell me something, let's say you're going to tell me you're married or something, and you're going to tell me your husband or your wife is abusing you of some sort, don't tell me not to say anything. Because as a friend and as someone who understands responsibility, I need to at that particular moment. So I'd love those that are listening to understand you have a certain responsibility to your friends. Let me read something from you. Galatians chapter 6, starting with the first verse. I'll read a few verses here. It says, brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself. Of course, my computer just timed
Locked
out.
on you?
It just timed out. How
tell
about
you,
that?
how about
Isn't that
that?
perfect timing? Where was I? I'll start over. Brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in the spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, so to fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something, when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But let each one test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor. For each will have to bear his own load. Now, let me help pick this apart a little bit. Some people are thinking, wow, you boast about on yourself. No, it's really easy. When you look at life the way we're living it, you have people in your life, and you're close to them. They're your friends. You know what they're doing. They're not doing what they should do. You, at this particular moment, see they're not doing what they should do, and you're doing what's right at this moment.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you always do what's right. Some people, when they help somebody else, they go, who do you think you are? No, you just happen to be another sinner that saw somebody trying to destroy themselves, and you know they're trying to destroy themselves, even though they don't know it, so you need to step up to the plate and talk to them about it. What's being said here is we have the responsibility to bear one another's burdens. There's a reason why this person is doing that. Let's go talk to him.
Yeah.
Why are you acting this way? What are you doing? Why are you living in this manner? So when that responsibility comes, now this is not about opinions. You might be thinking, yeah, I'm a Democrat and I have a Republican friend. I got to go after him. It's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
We're talking about people who are living in sin. We're talking about people who are violating the laws of the land, possibly.
Right.
People who are hurting themselves. There are so many times where there's a disaster that happens, and the kids that gather around the friend that had the disaster, they all knew it was going on, and nobody lifted a finger to stop it.
Yeah.
And I would say that each of you then becomes somewhat responsible for that because you didn't do anything. You just watched them go downhill. The other thing is sometimes, and we're being warned about it here in Galatians, sometimes we look at somebody else's life and we start judging our life by it. So we say, well, you know, me, I don't do drugs like this person does drugs, so we feel better about ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, every single human is sinful, and every single human will give an account for their life to God. And so what you need to understand is that I need to bear my own burdens as well. I need to look at myself. I need to understand that my sin is also available in life where it's destroying me and maybe those around me, and check your own life out. You're responsible for checking yourself, and you're responsible for being a good friend to your friends.
Right.
And if you're going to be responsible with sin, you realize that the thing you need to do is you need to confess it. You need to say it's wrong.
Yeah.
Therefore, if you see real sin in somebody else, the goal is to get your friend to say that's wrong. And that's not always comfortable.
Right. And the way you do it isn't in a very domineering sense.
No.
You know, I mean, there's a key word in there, you know, in verse 1, it says gentleness.
Gentleness.
You know, and so that's the approach you take. It's not to come in and be like, well, I'm better than you.
Right.
It's like, no, it's like we need to do this together. That's why it says bear one another's burdens. You know, it's everybody has burdens. And so, you know, it's like if I were to go with you, Dave, you know, we could bear each other's burdens. You struggle with something, I struggle with something, and that's how we do it.
That's
and
right.
we do it in a humble way where it's like, you know what, this is how we need to do this, you know, and that's how we do it together. I mean, you look at even the way that Jesus modeled it with the disciples, you know, is like he created this core group that he was trying to say, hey, you know, let's bear these burdens together.
Yeah, and you know, the warning in here in verse 2 says, bear one another's burdens, okay? But the third verse says, for if anyone thinks he's something when he's nothing, he deceives himself.
Yeah.
So there's this warning that basically says, I know the human spirit.
Yes.
You're going to look at somebody and go, I'm superior to you because I don't do marijuana or whatever. I don't do drugs that are illegal. I know it's legal in some states. But I don't do what you do. So now we start feeling better about ourselves. That's not why you correct somebody, because there's a hierarchy and you feel better about yourself. And remember, we do things because we care for people. So you see somebody doing something they shouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
You know it's wrong, regardless. It's not stuff like politics. It's not who's better in the president's office. That's stuff that's going to be opinions and debated forever.
Yeah.
But you know there's some moral issues, or there's some things that they're violating that you know they're hurting themselves. They're hurting their relationship, whether they be a married person or they're hurting their relationship as a child in a home. You're their friend.
Right.
Be responsible.
Right.
Go talk to them.
100%. You know, it's the sort of thing, like if you were to think about your closest relationships right now, and if you even are flirting with, well, maybe I should say something to them. If you ever in a situation where, like, if they were to be gone tomorrow, is there anything that today you would say to them that if they were gone tomorrow, you would, I wish I shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Right.
Then say it to them.
Right.
Those are the things that we're talking about. Why? Because you're caring for them. You're loving them. And God put that notion in you because that's how He's designed us to do. He's designed us to bear one another's burdens and help us, as iron sharpens iron.
Right.
Help us, because like it says in verse 2, and so fulfill the law of Christ. We're all striving to be Christ-like in this, and we're doing it together as sinful humans, that are redeemed through Christ.
Absolutely. Well, you're a parent. You have 3 sons.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Now, some children grow up in homes and they're very good at putting on an act for mom and dad.
Oh, yeah. A lot of children.
And we know how to do it. All of us were children that are older, and we all know what we could do to fool mom and dad. You don't tell dad this, you tell mom that. You don't tell mom that, you tell dad this. You learn how to play the game.
Totally. Well, it's not even within just a parent context. I mean, I think people learn how to do that all over the place.
Oh, absolutely.
But
yeah. But the bottom line really is, so you have 3 boys. Think of how you would feel if somebody came to you one day and said, you know what, I've talked to your oldest son. I just want you to know he's doing this. Mm-hmm. Would you be happy or angry with that person?
I'd be appreciative.
Yeah.
I'd be happy.
Because then now you can do something.
Right.
And that's your job.
Absolutely.
And you need to be a responsible parent.
Yes.
So being responsible as a friend means you can go to a responsible parent. If somebody ever comes to you and wants to just tell you something about one of your kids, you'd be wise to let them talk to you and just let it go.
Yeah.
Because the reason people would be afraid to talk to a parent of a friend is because the parent might defend them and say, well, you're a bum anyway. What are you talking about? You kick cats or something. Or you eat Peeps.
Right.
So I'm not listening to you. And if that's the case, okay, then that parent doesn't want to have any dialogue anyway.
Right.
But first, you always go to the person. If you've gone to the friend,
yeah,
and you said, hey, you got to stop this.
Right.
I've done this before with people where I've said, they're young people, and I said, you really need to fix this.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah. I said, well, here's the deal. I will let you talk to your parents about it, but if you don't do that in a week, I'm going to.
Yeah.
That's a good piece of responsibility right
Absolutely,
there.
Yeah.
Now what I've done is I put it back on the person, and I'm not going to be the bad guy.
Right.
But I do know that the parents need to know about this,
mm-hmm.
because this is a minor that needs help.
Yeah.
And it's being hidden from mom and dad. So I'm going to be responsible now as a friend and say, I'll give you a week.
Yeah.
And either you talk to him or I will.
Right.
Or somebody else that's in authority.
Mm-hmm.
It might be. And then you're being somewhat responsible to help that person. Indeed, that person may be mad at you for a while.
Yeah.
That may happen. Because what happens is they entrusted you to be irresponsible. When you look at friendship today, friendship doesn't mean that you don't say anything to anybody about anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's not friendship. And if you have that kind of arrangement with somebody, that's what you have. You have an arrangement. You don't have a commitment to each other. Mm-hmm. If you have a commitment to a friend, that means you're always going to do what you can to help that person be the best they can.
Yeah.
In some ways, that's why I'm glad I played sports in college, and specifically football in college. The coaches actually told you what you needed to do to improve. They didn't lie.
Right.
Like you made a bad block or you made a bad whatever you were doing. They didn't come over to you and say, well, that wasn't bad. Mm-hmm. No, they come over and say, that was wrong.
Yeah.
And you look at them and go, but coach, no, it was wrong. Don't do that again.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sitting there thinking, well, you got nerve.
Yeah.
No, you're saying, okay, you're right. It was wrong. What do I need to do to correct it? I wish that friendships, relationships were more like athletics in that sense. The coach isn't going to lie to you and say, that was a great block when it was terrible.
Yeah.
In fact, you better not have much of an ego at that point, because the coach is going to say, that was sloppy. You can do better than that. Get out there, move that leg over there first instead of that one. Otherwise, you're going to get knocked down every single time, and you know better than that. Well, all right, already I'm mad, you know, because I did something sloppy. He identified it. He knows what he saw.
Yeah.
And he actually held me accountable. And we don't see that in a lot of friendships. You know, off the field, it seems like that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
But it probably should be. For each one will have to bear his own load. When I stand before God, God isn't going to have me stand accountable for you. He's going to have me stand accountable for what I did with what I knew.
Yeah.
And if I knew something about you, it's not you that I have to be accountable for. It's the information that I know. And sometimes what people need to realize is that the more information I get on something, the more responsible I need to be.
Right.
So if I know a lot about something and I'm with somebody who doesn't know much about it, I need to be the responsible person and help grow them and help them. That's being responsible.
Yeah.
We talked about that in our last program. But I know I've read a lot of commentators on this section, and Spurgeon's one of my favorite. He was just talking about, you know, what we don't realize is that really we're all the same. We're all the same. We're all sinful. We all need help. We all need to be around people who care for us. We all have blind spots. Everybody in the world does. So when we help somebody, it's one leper helping another kind of thing. You're out there helping each other. You can't get proud about it.
Right.
And that's what this passage is talking about.
Right.
However, you did use the information responsibly. So my question would be, how do you use it irresponsibly? If I have information on you,
Yeah.
how would I use that information irresponsibly?
Oh, you could, use it to harm me.
I could gossip.
Right. Yeah, you could tell other people. You could tell everybody but me about it.
Yep. Now that's sin.
Yeah.
That's outright banned in the scriptures.
Yeah.
So if I talk about you to somebody else,
Yeah.
The right way to do it, the responsible way to do it, is talk to you
Right.
and tell you the next step.
Yeah.
If you're not going to respond, or to even say, well, if you're going to do this, I think friendship should be where you can tell somebody, if you're going to do this, I don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
I don't want to be around this.
Yep.
This is not healthy. That's a good friend, not a bad friend.
Yeah.
Not one that looks the other way. So we need to redefine that. But if anyone thinks he's something when he's nothing, he deceives himself. But each one tests his own work and then has reason to boast. If he boasts, he does it himself. If he says, I did something right, it's because I used the information correctly. It isn't because I'm better than you.
Yeah.
And realize that I will have to give an account for that. Let the one who is taught, look at verse 6, and there says, let the one who is taught the word, you know what the next phrase is on that? Share all good things with the one he teaches. The responsibility again.
Yep.
Once you learn something,
You got to share it.
you got to share it.
Yep.
So you learn something about your friend, share it. Now here's where in a human way, it could get irritating.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because again, I think we don't discern well enough sometimes the things that we really need to care about and things we don't.
Yeah.
The type of coffee you drink, the way you filter it, the way you grind it. I'm not 100% sure. If you found a really great method, go ahead and share that. But if somebody says, I disagree, those are methods that you don't need to argue about.
Right.
Those
I
are
agree.
things.
Yeah.
That's not absolutes. But when you look at, if you learn something in God's Word, it's true. Share it with those you love. How often do people who are just friends share what God is doing in their life?
I would say not very often.
They get together. I watch young
Yeah.
Christian people all the time, and if they get together, very few of them say, hey, what are you learning today?
Right.
What would it take for anybody to set up a platform for sharing? I mean, in their life, to make it a normative habit. If you've got a friend, you set it up so that, Hey, what'd you learn today? That may be you haven't seen them or whatever for a couple days. You see them, you go, hey, what are you learning?
Mm-hmm.
And let them share that with you.
Yeah.
And then you ask them back, what are you learning? Oh, yeah, okay. Now you've set up a healthy environment for sharing. I remember actually that happened up here. There was a good friend of mine, and we were working with the horses, and we'd go in the canteen, the old canteen, and we'd sit at night. And a lot of times what would happen there is we'd start talking about what we read in the morning. We just start sharing.
Yep.
Now, those days were ancient days. By that I mean we didn't have radios, no televisions up here. There was absolutely nothing to do other than sit and look at each other.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the greatest days, I think, in my life, because all that stuff was absent. And I remember guys just sitting. I still remember sitting one day, and my friend said, this verse in this psalm where God separates our sins as far as the east is from the west. I've just been thinking about that and how precious that is. And I'm thinking, here a bunch of high school kids are talking like that.
Yeah.
We didn't have all the distractions. We knew that we were learning something. We wanted to see what other people were learning. And that little group to this day has all been serving the Lord in places.
Right.
And so I think we need to be responsible for each one who bears his own load. Let the one who is taught the word share all good things with the one who teaches. Do not be deceived. God isn't mocked. For whatever one sows, then he will also reap. If you're all about yourself, so you're the only reason why you wouldn't help somebody through a messy situation is because you're about yourself. Well, that's not the right motive at that point.
Right.
You're going to get don't be deceived. God isn't mocked. What you sow, you're going to reap. If you don't care about others probably won't care about you either. If you're in a relationship where you can't talk to people about what they're doing, and you can't be honest with them, then you have to remember something. Those people aren't talking to you about what you're doing, and they're not honest with you either. So now you have trouble. I would be very careful to set up your friendships in a way where you have at least one good friend that, you're in high school now, you're in grade school, whatever it might be. You have one good friend that you agree is going to be honest with, and that you will help each other throughout your life.
Yeah.
Then after you really practice this on one, get another one. Have 3 people in that group. You practice that, get another one in there. And before you know it, you've created a normative of a friendship group that is going to be much healthier, because you have people who will hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
And I tell you what will happen. People will get mad at each other. They'll get out of the group and in the group, because that's the way we are as people. They didn't want you to pry into their life. They'll call you judgmental. And you might be. You don't want to be judgmental. If somebody says you're judging, you need to step back and say, am I?
Right.
Am I really judgmental? Judgmental has to do with more with motive than it does with action.
Yeah.
So I might come to you and say, why did you drink 8 smoothies? You're a pig, kind of thing. And realize, oh, you didn't. You gave 7 smoothies to the poor. You just walked out with them.
Right.
So judgment is like, I'm trying to figure out why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Where when you help somebody, the thing you want to do is make sure you know God's word, and you're not judging them if you tell them they shouldn't lie. You're not judging them if you tell them they shouldn't commit sexual sin. You're not judging them at that point.
Yeah.
You're saying something God says. That's not judgmental. That's something you're trying to help them with.
Right. Right.
So,
and always do it in a sense of gentleness, and I think that even plays in that judgmental thing. It all comes across in the way that you're doing it. If you truly are caring for and loving for the person, you do it in a way that's responsive.
Right.
Because it's gonna be mutual.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna want them to approach you in a way that is gentle and understanding. And that's why it's important. I would even take it further. Not only just have somebody that's your age, but I would even put somebody that you could look up to, that you could be honest with, that can ask you the hard questions sometimes and point out the hard things, and that way they can mentor you and encourage you, because then they've even done some more life and can offer wisdom into the situations that you're going through or things that you're struggling with.
Yeah, they may see it clearly where you don't.
Yeah.
And always remember, those who have taught you, you share with them too.
Yeah.
In other words, if people go out of their way to care for you that way, you go out of your way to make sure their needs are met as well.
Yeah.
And that's what the sharing thing, if you haven't gotten it, the responsibility thing we're talking about is constantly, no matter what end of the spectrum you're on,
Yeah.
You're thinking, what can I do back? What can I do for this person? And that's really what let the one be taught. Share all good things with the one who teaches.
Mm-hmm.
So, we need to be people who are responsible in life, and responsibility cures a whole bunch of ills.
Yeah.
It really does. Irresponsible people gossip.
Yep.
They slander. They talk about others with others, and they think they're even doing it in the light of let's pray for them or whatever it might be. If you're not talking to the person and you're not trying to fix it in a way that is gentle and shows some caring, then you're probably going to mess it all up.
Yeah.
And that's where the church, I think, gets a bad reputation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fully agree. And so I just encourage you to look at ways that you can actually start putting this into action, because like we talked about in the previous episode, and even this episode, this whole concept of personal responsibility, as we grow closer to becoming more like Christ, it takes effort on our end. If we were just to sit there and do nothing, then we're not going to grow. In order to grow, you have to do something.
Right.
And part of that is investing into other people around you that you're doing life with, that you could be honest with and be open with and bear each other's burdens, just like it says here in Galatians chapter 6. And so I encourage you to look for a relationship in your life that you could do that with and start doing it with, and just be vulnerable, because I guarantee you that God will use that in massive ways. Unfortunately, we're out of time on this episode of Younger and Older. Tune in next time. This is Jason and Dave. Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.